The Western Cape is a great place for a holiday, yes, but these days it's also a great place to invest. Cape Town has been listed as one of the world's top global cities for its foreign direct investment strategy, evidence of the mother city's qualities when it comes to growing your money. WESGRO has played a big role in this. It is the official tourism, trade and investment promotion agency for Cape Town and the Western Cape.
We've been around for 35 years. We're co-funded by the City of Cape Town and the Provincial Government of the Western Cape to do investment promotion, export promotion, tourism promotion. We run the film promotion team for the province, and we run an air access unit that works on landing more non-stop flights at Cape Town International. So they're all within the economic promotion space, and we're governed by a board made up of the most influential business leaders in the region. We're mandated to do investment promotion for Cape Town and the Western Cape. That means engaging with investors who are looking usually to access opportunities across the region and the African continent, and making the case for why they should be choosing to invest in the Cape, and then facilitating those investments. So sitting at the investor side, making sure regulatory issues go quicker and smoother, making sure the process of investing in the Cape is pleasant, and helping to get to the point where we can do a ribbon cutting, hopefully on a large capital investment associated with thousands of jobs. That's what we work for in the investment promotion space.
To help facilitate investment in the province is the Cape Investor Centre. It is a fully serviced, one-stop shop facility geared towards assisting multinationals and local companies cut through red tape and accelerate approvals in the investment facilitation process.
We're sitting here at what we call the Cape Investor Centre, which is the Invest SA one-stop shop in the Western Cape. It's a really collaborative effort. There's ourselves as the kind of coordinating operating partner, but the centre consists of 12 provincial, local and national entities co-located here in this site. It's obviously street level on St. George's Mall, so very easy to access. And what you see is all of the local, provincial and national entities that engage with investors, where investors are having to go to Home Affairs to get work visas, they have to file their tax return with SARS, they need to apply to the DTI for regulatory approvals or for incentives. And all of those interactions are taking place with 12 entities at any one time across the country. They're usually, one of our managers has got them on the phone or sending emails. When we opened the centre, that changed. Now you can have all of those entities in the same meeting, in the same building, just down from their office at the Investor Centre. That's the power of what we've done here. It's been co-funded by the DTI through their Invest SA initiative, and by DDAT, which is the Provincial Department of Economic Development and Tourism. So it's probably the most collaborative project that we're involved in, and I think it's going to make the process of investing in South Africa, but particularly the Western Cape, much easier from now on.
At the centre, business and investors will have access to relevant information and documentation needed for different institutions under one roof, from business permits, water, electricity, and tax-related services, which are all provided by government officials.
Our operating model pivots on the collaboration of 12 operating partners within the co-location space. The operating partners assist with the facilitation of national, provincial and local regulatory approvals that again expedite the facilitation process for companies seeking to commercialize investments in the province. Multinationals will have dedicated key account managers that assist with end-to-end process or end-to-end facilitation of the investments in the province. That being from company registration under the auspices of SIPC, right through to us assisting with the ribbon cutting at their facility.
Incentives are offered by the Cape Investment Centre. Geared towards facilitating employment, these incentives are in the form of tax-free grants and relaxing company tax liabilities.
I think over and above the incentive packages is really the conducive business environment that South Africa, the Western Cape and Cape Town represents. Here, I think what's important to understand for investors is that we have first world infrastructure to facilitate international business that's associated to the growth in opportunities synonymous to the developed markets. So we have a unique value proposition where South Africa is a conducive place to do business, particularly to international businesses looking to headquarter on the African continent in order to capitalize off of the high growth anticipated in the rest of the continent. Multinational corporations that we've assisted enter the market have really identified two key drivers for the investment into the region. 42% of multinationals entering the market have indicated that they've done so because of their confidence in the domestic market growth potential. And then second to that is regional economic integration that we offer within the Southern African development community and beyond.
The WESGRO trade unit works to promote and facilitate the export of Western Cape goods and services. During the 2016-2017 financial year, WESGRO Trade Unit facilitated the signing of 41 business agreements with an estimated economic value of 9 billion rand. These agreements created 781 jobs.
The trade unit is a team of market managers who have divided up the world into our most important markets. So a few years ago, the rest of Africa overtook Europe to become our most important buyer of Western Cape products. So there's a dedicated Africa team that has French and Portuguese language skills and focuses on driving our exports into the rest of the continent. Our number two market is Europe. There's a European market manager leading missions into Europe, followed by Asia and then the USA. So each of those blocks has a dedicated market manager, and they develop the connections with export-ready companies so that they can put together effective selling missions on behalf of the Cape. There's also a set of programs that we call the Export Advancement Program, where we're taking companies that don't export but have the capacity to, and we train them in how they could start exporting. So that's a key intervention, particularly for smaller companies that want to start growing their global sales.
One of these organizations is Treasure Chest, an initiative that was created by Black-owned wine brand owners who joined together to form a joint action group where they take their wines and go out to market their products.
It's one of the first in South Africa. It's unique, but it's very powerful and dynamic. Powerful and dynamic because it's a trade initiative. So we're about trade, we're about economics. And where the Treasure Chest goes, we take our own wine brands produced by us, and the brands are crafted by us, and our stories are told through the brands. And then we go to market and sell the wines. But by trading and by selling the wines, we increase jobs in South Africa, number one, and we bring about increase to the agricultural industry. So it's basically a win-win system, whereby the agricultural industry benefits, economics in South Africa benefits, export revenues benefit, government benefits, and black business benefits. The Treasure Chest is very unique because it addresses transformation. And as we are aware, transformation in the wine industry is lagging behind. So there's a lot of catching up to be done. And because the wine industry in South Africa is 360 years old, produces over 980 million liters of wine. But the part that black business plays in the wine industry is very, very minute. WESGRO is a very, very important component to transformation in the wine industry. And WESGRO has also embraced that. They're passionate about transformation. They ensure that trade missions, we get invited. They ensure that whenever there's delegations that come in to South Africa and need to look at wine sales and buying of wines when importers come, WESGRO makes it a duty to phone us. WESGRO makes it a duty to contact us to come there at their offices and do shows. So WESGRO is very important.
Yeah, Treasure Chest is a great initiative. 13 companies, majority of them are women-owned, and really unearthing talent where perhaps our buyers didn't expect to find talent. New brands, innovative brands, with some exciting new winemakers producing super high quality products. We've worked a lot with Treasure Chest on the promotion side, but also with particular outward selling missions and buying missions. Last week we actually hosted them here at the Investor Center together with the largest buyer of South African wine out of Russia. Really saying, you're used to procuring from the big established wine producers, but hang on, we've got these 13 emerging producers that are producing wines that are as good, as consistent, and really opening up the buyer's eyes to new opportunities in the space. By all accounts, it was an incredibly successful intervention, and he actually spent a week not only meeting with the 13 companies associated with Treasure Chest, but also touring some of their facilities, touring the wine farms, and I hope he's going to be buying a lot more of our products out of the Western Cape into Russia because of that mission.
2 years ago, WESGRO lobbied for an additional mandate from the Western Cape provincial government, which they call Outward Foreign Direct Investment, which is focused on the rest of Africa, where they take companies that don't just want to sell more, but expand their operations.
So we're obviously inspired by what we saw ShopRite do, running huge continental operations, by far the biggest retailer across Africa, running all of those operations from Cape Town. So the more we can help ambitious companies like that expand their footprint on the continent, but make sure that they run that footprint from Cape Town, the more we can position ourselves as a key market for investment, thinking about a broader African business strategy. So for the last 2 years, we've been helping companies invest out of the Western Cape into the rest of the continent. And I think it's a relatively innovative mandate for an agency like ours to be delivering on, but it's just building the case for Cape Town as a natural destination to think about your broader African strategy.
South Africa's current economic performance and political uncertainty has been an area of concern for investors.
We answer a lot more questions about politics than we used to, that's for sure. But the thing about South Africa is we're definitely a country of interest globally. So our politics is covered quite generously in overseas markets. Most people are reading about political developments, and that's leading them to ask questions about what the politics means for the direction of the country. The reality is, when you dig past the headlines, when you look at the fundamentals, there's no country on this continent with the institutional base or the sophisticated infrastructure that we have. And those, we find, are actually the two biggest drivers of investor confidence and of the investment case for the Western Cape, actually. So the way it works is most investors will say, right, I'm expanding globally. I can see this emergence of this huge consumer base in Africa. What am I going to do? How am I going to invest to access that consumer base? Once they've done that, they say, well, let me look at the 50 or so countries in Africa and make a call about where I should be basing my investment. And once you start analyzing infrastructure and institutions, nobody can come close to South Africa. We're getting real competition from places like Ghana and Nigeria and Rwanda. But in reality, they're a couple of decades perhaps away from that institutional and infrastructural sophistication. So that's the reality. It's the reality today. It was the reality before, and it's the single biggest driver of the investment case for the Western Cape. Once they've decided on South Africa, then we obviously make the case for why Cape Town and the Western Cape is the most dynamic and competitive region to invest in. And we've certainly got a strong investment case and a strong track record to make that case to investors. But the important thing is this is not a case we make de-linked from national. It's entirely dependent on the investment case for South Africa, which remains strong despite the politics.
After the break, we found out more on how the Cape is leading the way in new technologies with the help of institutions like Launch Lab. The Western Cape is positioning itself as a launchpad for technology companies expanding into the rest of the continent. One organization helping startups get off the ground is Launch Lab. an initiative with the goal to establish a network of university campus-based business incubators across Africa and create an entrepreneurial ecosystem that can benefit and accelerate entrepreneurs and startups.
So we started out of Stellenbosch University's Technology Transfer Office, that's Innovus, and we were initially set up to incubate their university IP spin-out. So when they set up a company from research, they set the Launch Lab up to take that and then grow it into a commercial entity. And then after a few of those came off well, then we saw more demand from more entrepreneurs and startups looking for some similar service. So now we're only about 6 Innovus spin-out companies, and there's more than 56 companies that we're busy working with in total at the moment. It's a very interesting looking space, and the connections that it facilitates, we designed it so that it would facilitate lots of connections between the entrepreneurs and different partners that we bring in. We also run different programs, so we have an ideas program where we have specific industry challenges that we work with our partners on. And then we recruit new startups in that way, even from concept. You don't even need an MVP, and we'll help you build out that concept, which one company now, Gift Drop, is busy doing that. He came with a concept. He was a TV director, and now he's a fintech startup founder. He had a concept of this gifting service. He pitched it to one of our partners events about a year ago, and now he's launching on the 1st of November. He's already cash positive just from that connection we helped facilitate. That's the Ideas program. We also have a lean startup kind of program where if you have a concept and you want to get an MVP or a minimum viable product built quickly, we run you through a 3-month process to go get out of the building, test the market with potential customers, and get proper feedback so that when you do build something, you build something that people actually want. And then there's a third program called Countdown that's kind of your pre-accelerator program. Before the Techstars, before the grindstone kind of programs, we build it so that you can get into those things. So that's the formal stuff that we do. But the majority of what we do is we try to engineer connections and relationships between our startups and our corporate partners like Nedbank, like Attack, like Santam and Mercedes-Benz and others, as well as different investors that are around the Cape Town area. This is the most prolific venture capital and angel investment place in South Africa, at least. So we try to facilitate those relationships, and we end up providing a lot of extra credibility to the startups by housing them here and the programs that we take them through.
The Launch Lab works with a variety of startups in various fields, from blockchain to biotechnology.
We protect video content and ebooks from piracy using Bitcoin and blockchain-based technology. And we're already in the market in South Africa, the UK, the US, Japan, Hong Kong now. So we are expanding now. We've got a SaaS platform called screenrecopy.com, which is in the market all over the world, which allows indie film producers to distribute their content securely and easily. It's obviously a new technology, Bitcoin and blockchain, but it's also very exciting. So we've been able to get a lot of interest from big players all over the industry to understand how you can use Bitcoin and the blockchain to protect your content and help distribute your content.
WESGRO essentially is a company we founded as students at Stellenbosch University. Tongue-in-cheekly, we can be referred to as the Airbnb of storage and parking space. So we identified a problem as students at the university where we have a lack of affordable and accessible storage space. So essentially, WESGRO is a marketplace that connects people who need space to people with available space. We actually started last year at university with concept and ideation. Presently, we actually rolled out. We're available on iOS for mobile app downloads, and we recently launched our new functional web-based platform where you can actually visit a site and book storage and parking space.
WESGRO is a biotech startup, and we are in a plant-made pharmaceutical sector, making therapeutic or biotherapeutic proteins using plants as a bioreactor or as a host. So it will be used to make for example, a very expensive biological drug, like a cancer drug, or for a drug for rare diseases, and where the drug is currently being made in a mammalian cell line system or bacterial cell line system, which also is very costly and labor intensive. We use plants to make the biological drugs. The plants is just as complex, so it can make a complex drug at sufficiently lower costs, and it is scalable. So the plant itself is a bioreactor, and you can just use more plants if you have the right clone to make this human protein.
The tech landscape in Cape Town is a well-rounded one. Not only is it home to many of South Africa's startups, but also home to established tech giants including the likes of Naspers and e-commerce site Takealot.
I think Stellenbosch is an interesting link to the rest of Africa in that we have an interesting link between Europe and other Western economies directly to the African soil. So we can bring Western technology where blockchain and all that kind of stuff is coming out, but then we also have interesting local problems and African problems that we can solve. So we're an interesting space where we can really bring the best of both worlds together to solve problems.
This is the whole tech space, the whole innovation ecosystem, what we call Silicon Cape, which is the emergence of Cape Town and the Western Cape as the leading technology cluster on the continent. It begins with the universities. No other city has the skills pipeline that we have in UCT, UWC, CPUT and Stellenbosch. Those are some of the top ranked universities on the continent and they surround Cape Town. And then we've got major corporate technology players like Naspers, which is the largest media company in the world outside of the USA and China, headquartering out of Cape Town. We've got big e-commerce players like Takealot. So there's a real kind of institutional strength from local companies, and it's being matched by international investors like Amazon that not only run a large call center in Cape Town, but also develop their cloud technology for Amazon Web Services out of a team based in Cape Town. So that's perhaps the explanation for why the entrepreneurial scene in tech is so strong in the Cape. Around the universities, around these large corporate players in the tech space, you're seeing clusters like travel tech, like edu-tech, like health tech emerging, where entrepreneurs are choosing to move here from around the country and around the world to get involved in startups. They've got more support from the funding side than anywhere else in the country. 60% of VC deals in recent years have been done in the Western Cape. We've got more venture capital companies than anywhere else in the country. So it's a very supportive ecosystem, and it's certainly right near the top of our list in terms of sectors to watch and to nurture growth in over the next few years.
Tourism in the Western Cape is a major contributor to both the province and the country's economy. And with plans in the pipeline to strengthen the Western Cape's air network, this is a welcoming sign for the already flourishing tourism sector.
About 3 years ago, we realized that we were competitive on almost all of the site selection factors between Cape Town and other cities on the continent, with the exception of the strength of our air network. Traditionally, our Tambo Airport in Johannesburg has been the hub. That was the strategy implemented by South African Airlines. It was a strategy supported by the airports company, but we realized that we needed to work a lot more as the region to get more non-stop flight connections, because it's a good driver of investment. Certainly, it makes it easier to grow exports in terms of being able to access markets and the air freight consideration, and it's a huge driver of tourism, the ease of connectivity. So we put together a collaborative project that is co-funded by the airports company, by the provincial government, the city government. It's based at WESGRO, but it's also supported by Cape Town Tourism, by South African Tourism. And the objective of this project is to work with the airlines to make the case for non-stop flights to Cape Town. We thought maybe at the beginning we could land 3 new non-stop flights. 2 years later, we just announced our 10th new flight. That represents, if you include the new flights that have landed and our expansion of existing flights, more than 700,000 new annual seats to Cape Town. So it's really transformed how connected our region is to the rest of Africa and the world within a few years. And I think the secrets of the success is that it is so collaborative. We're essentially competing with airports around the world, but very few of the places we compete with have built these collaborative approaches. So that's a big driver of our success. And we've also benefited from the rise of Cape Town as a global tourist destination. More and more people want to come here, and the demand from tourists is switching towards non-stop connectivity. The old idea of fly into a hub and then distribute from there that's being challenged by consumer demand. Consumers want the convenience of a non-stop flight, and I think it's been another big driver of our success landing new flights.
One of the companies to benefit from the influx of tourists these new flight connections will bring them is SA Forest Adventures.
Well, as SA Forest Adventures started 7 years ago with 2 quad bikes and a guide bike in Hermanus, the lovely town of Hermanus. And it started off just as a tester to see if the adventure industry is ready for it. It grew. We now currently have a fleet of over 60 bikes in 4 different sites where we quad bike in the Western Cape. It grew from there also into a big paintball business, a big zipline business. We've got 4 zipline sites in the Western Cape, with a branch also soon opening up in Knysna. So expansion at a stage in the beginning of the business was looking and scouting for property and doing a lot of groundwork. The company SA Forest Adventures are now at a stage where people want to invest. I get a lot of phone calls and say, I've got a piece of land, can we do this, can we do that? So we're in a good space at the moment. Well, the Western Cape, I think, and Cape Town itself, and the Garden Route and town of Hermanus, they're all on a tourist bucket list when you come to South Africa. And surely you can't visit Africa and just go on a safari. You need to have a proper adventure experience as well. So from an adventure point of view, I think the growth in the Western Cape especially has grown phenomenally. There were certain provinces that were bounds ahead of us, such as the Eastern Cape many years ago. But the Western Cape has certainly surpassed all the expectations at this stage within the adventure industry for people visiting South Africa.
The Cape is the leading tourism economy on the continent. Key to WESGRO's tourism strategy is to spread the tourism benefits throughout the whole of the Western Cape province.
And across that space, we focus primarily on making sure tourists that come to Cape Town, which is one of the leading bucket list destinations in the world, get to experience the full range of attractions right across the Western Cape province. So we particularly focused on working with the regions to get tourists out across the whole of the Western Cape in the winter season especially. And our efforts are things like establishing routes to give people an excuse to leave the city and get out into the regions. We sponsor events in the regions and in general try and spread the benefits of the tourism economy across the Western Cape.
The initiatives the Western Cape has in place to boost economic growth are bearing fruit. Creating an environment which is conducive to tourism and investment friendly for investors and businesses is key to economic growth for the country.